Oreo understood my impatience. He sped up even more, maintaining a steady pace of nearly 90 kilometers per hour. In less than 20 minutes, I spotted the western shelter. It also had windbreak dirt walls, but unlike Feng Mingyue's place, this shelter was dug a meter into the ground, leaving only the roof exposed. At the simple camp gate, amidst the howling blizzard, I saw 3 flickering torches on the verge of going out. Under the torchlight were familiar faces. Chen Shun and the group of men I had saved the first time. Zhong Qingshu, who was saved the second time, and the woman holding the newborn baby. After a long time of guessing, plus their conversations with Qingshu, they finally figured it out. Lu Bu was me, and I was Lu Bu. Over 20 people stood in the blizzard. When they saw Oreo rushing over, their faces didn't show joy, but sheer terror. A giant 3-meter-long wolf. Even on Earth, such a thing had never been seen. Qingshu originally thought I was driving here. Seeing this, she instinctively took a step back. Oreo looked as majestic as a divine beast, and I, walking right behind him, looked like a lord of the storm. As I got closer and saw everyone holding shoddy weapons, I froze for a moment. I didn't ask for their help. I only told Qingshu. Yet, the people I had saved were still willing to step up. Before I could even open my mouth, they rushed forward. Suemo, hurry up and save them. We'll help you fight. Boss Suemo, you saved my life. Fighting the kobolds? Say no more. You don't need to explain. To survive in this wasteland, we have to stick together. Give me a spear, and I'll charge in first. Their faces were gaunt, but their eyes burned bright. Beneath the worn-out cotton coats, I had given them beat hearts that never grew old. A farmer in his 40s gripped a stone axe, his eyes blazing, ready to risk his life storming the kobold castle with just that axe. Standing on my snowboard, behind my mask, my eyes grew a little damp. A fierce surge of emotion welled up inside me. Disasters are merciless, but humanity is full of righteousness. I planted a small seed of kindness back then, never expecting to reap such a sweet harvest of human warmth today. They all volunteered. We were saved by you too. I couldn't stop them. There's strength in numbers. Let's advance together. Qingshu patted my shoulder, her gaze resolute. Amidst the howling storm, I looked at these simple, honest people, and my heart caught fire. If everyone has made up their minds, I accept. I took a deep breath. I'll go first. Oreo will come back to pick you guys up later. I patted Oreo's head, then turned around, my voice stern. Grab your weapons. Without holding back, I pulled out 4 rifles and a machine gun, placing them on the ground. Their eyes widened in shock. We have guns. We have ammo. Fight with me today. Whoever kills a kobold and gets a drop box, I won't take a single dime of it. We even have explosives. Even if they hide in their castle, we have ways to drag them out and slaughter them. Just one thing, we're going all out. My voice wasn't loud, but to them, it was like a thunderclap in the dead of winter. At first, it was just raw emotion. But after those words, their morale exploded. Even the women stepped forward, staring at the rifles with burning desire. The people of Huaxia have never lacked courage. Just give them a piece of steel, and they can pierce the heavens. Chen Shun hugged the machine gun, his eyes blazing. In front of the shelter gates, a roaring cheer erupted for the first time, as if shattering the frozen world itself. Seeing their soaring morale, I nodded and signaled Qingshu to get on the snowboard. Once she was strapped in, Oreo understood and immediately dashed off like the wind. In that terrifying blizzard, crossing the desolate plains, for the first time, I was no longer holding back. All that remained was the scorching fire of blood and brotherhood. Hold on tight. Don't fall. Stay low. I instructed Qingshu as she wrapped her arms around my waist. We both crouched low, using the slipstream Oreo created to glide swiftly across the ground. The terrifying stamina of a husky, combined with the buff from the snow. At this moment, I was incredibly grateful that my first summoned pet was a husky. No other breed could unleash such insane power in a blizzard like this, bringing a glimmer of hope amidst the disaster. I shouted back, trying to overpower the howling wind. Listen up. We'll attack from the front. You figure out a way to use your old trick. Dig inside and find her. The person I'm looking for is my younger sister. When you get there, just shout my name as loud as you can. If she hears it, she'll know I'm here. Please, help me. Remember, don't push yourself too hard. My sister might not even be inside. Human lives are still the most important thing. I felt Qingshu's firm nod against my back. My heart eased a little. I immediately focused on figuring out how to breach the Kobold Castle. A frontal assault with conventional weapons was almost impossible. Even with guns, breaking through the thick stone walls of that fortress would be too difficult. Not to mention the massive disparity in our numbers. The only thing I could utilize right now were the 60 packs of explosives. If I wanted to force them out for a life-and-death battle, I had to make them show their faces. There are at least 1,000, maybe even over 2,000 kobolds in that castle. If I was certain my sister wasn't inside, I would have just launched a Dongfeng missile to wipe them all out. But right now, I couldn't. I needed something to deliver the explosives right up to their walls, forcing them to step out and fight. Gripping the rope tightly, I watched the Kobold Castle gradually appear before my eyes. My mind raced through all the weapons that had ever existed throughout civilized history. From siege ladders, catapults, and battering rams of ancient times, to modern cannons and bombers, they all shared the same principle. Breach the fortified walls and strike directly inside. To force the kobolds out, I had to make them afraid. I had to make them believe that if they didn't come out, their shelter would collapse. The walls looked sturdy, but thinking about the fortress's suspended foundation, I decided not to risk it and prioritized a surefire plan. Immediately, viable options flashed before my eyes. Italian cannons, GP mortars, field artillery. But looking at the tens of thousands of survival points required to craft any of them, I could only sigh. I wanted them to step out, but I couldn't blow up the entire castle. Those weapons weren't suitable. They were either too powerful or not intimidating enough. I needed something to help me throw the explosives onto the wall or shoot them straight at it. Tossing modern weapons aside, only two options remained, a catapult or a heartless cannon. At that moment, I suddenly remembered Feng Xiaojing's movie, Assembly, a weapon that commanded awe and gave people goosebumps. During the war, the army had no artillery, so the soldiers improvised the heartless cannon. They used oil drums as barrels, loaded them with propellant, and launched explosive packs 150 to 200 meters away. A 10-kilogram explosive pack was enough to collapse a bunker and wipe out a camp. Many enemies fell without a single wound, bleeding from their ears, eyes, nose, and mouth, killed by the sheer concussive force, hence the name Heartless Cannon. In this situation, it was a cheap option and intimidating enough. A perfect plan. With the castle right before my eyes, I excitedly pulled the rope, signaling Oreo to stop. Oreo, go back and pick up the others. I'm counting on you. I opened a bottle of energy water for Oreo to drink. Seeing his exhausted face made my heart ache. His dull fur immediately regained its shine, and his body, which had shrunk by several tens of centimeters, quickly recovered. I patted his head, secured the snowboard rope, and gave his back a gentle tap. Woof. A woo. Oreo let out a howl and dashed off like the wind. I watched his silhouette fade away, my gaze turning cold. No one is born a leader. And certainly, no one is born a god of war. Growth doesn't happen in a single breath. It has to be exchanged for blood and tears. People only see the greatness of a leader, the power of a god of war. But few know how much pain and despair I had to swallow behind the scenes. As an ordinary person from Earth, after overcoming the initial panic, facing death on the wasteland every day had forged my ability to see the big picture and make split-second decisions. I opened my friends list. Sukin's online status icon was lit up. I took a deep breath, then skirted around the left side of the castle to prepare for crafting the Heartless Cannons. On the opposite side, Zhong Qingshu wasn't idle either. Using the snowy night as cover, she slipped to the right, scouting their defensive positions, the kobold forces, and where my sister might be held. With the game interface supporting our communication, it was even more convenient than walkie-talkies, allowing us to coordinate flawlessly. Just 10 minutes later, before Oreo returned for his second trip, we had finished our reconnaissance. The kobolds are probably asleep right now. If your sister is inside, she should be safe for the time being. Lying flat on the ground, looking through her binoculars, Qingshu whispered. Her voice lacked certainty, but I still nodded, my heart settling a bit. I have a way. I'm not sure if it'll work, but it's the fastest solution. We need to pinpoint your sister's location as soon as possible. As she spoke, Qingshu pulled out a paper map of the Kobold Castle, detailed down to every nook and cranny. Go ahead, I'm listening. I nodded, signaling her to speak her mind. You're ranked number 1 globally, right? I remember the top-ranked player can start a live stream. If the system confirms that the Kobold Castle is within a 50-kilometer radius of your shelter, then you can start a live stream and use the aerial view to clearly see the internal structure of the castle. At this point, she pointed at the map, marking a few key locations. As long as we can verify those spots, there's a very high chance we'll find Su Kan. That's right. How could I have forgotten about this? As long as the castle was within a 50-kilometer radius of my shelter, I could absolutely start a live stream. 1 head is limited, but 2 heads are better than 1, or in this case, Zhuge Liang. Reminded by Zhong Qingshu, it was like I had woken up. This was an incredibly important mechanic, yet almost no one had thought of it until now. During a disaster, who would run 50 kilometers away from their shelter to fight? In the previous 2 disasters, even though dozens of people made the leaderboards, including me, no one had ever utilized this function like this. A classic blind spot in thinking. If no one had reminded me, it probably would have taken me a long time to figure it out. If I wanted the system to recognize this area as part of my shelter, all I had to do was create a new shelter right here. The process was incredibly simple. All it took was a complete shelter core. Thanks to Qingshu's suggestion, my thoughts cleared up. A complete shelter core was like a card item. It didn't take up space, and as long as it was in my inventory, I could use it anytime. I opened my inventory interface. I still had 9 shelter cores left. Feeling somewhat relieved, without hesitation, I took one out and began creating a shelter. I selected above-ground shelter. This would serve as the temporary command center for the upcoming battle, so I chose the surface-level type. The turtle shell-shaped core vibrated slightly when summoned. Then, like a seed, shot straight into the ground beneath my feet. Unlike underground shelters that required digging, the above-ground shelter was like a tree accelerated by divine power, sprouting in mere seconds. It shot up, growing into an old but fully functional wooden cabin. I stepped inside and, without sparing any survival points, spent a full 350 points to craft a simple lighting system. A lithium battery connected to a light bulb. When I flipped the switch, light flared up, illuminating the room. System, start live stream. First perspective, fixed above the shelter, immovable, open for all players to view. Second perspective, 50-kilometer radius, free movement, restricted from other players. Once the setup was complete, the start button lit up. I immediately pressed it and ran out of the wooden cabin. The sky outside was pitch black from the blizzard, yet in the blink of an eye, it became as bright as day, thanks to the special privileges of a top-ranked streamer. I felt as if I had left my body, entering a third-person perspective, hovering in the air. 300 meters, 200 meters, 100 meters. The distance between the camera and the Kobold Castle grew closer and closer. Looking at the clueless kobolds below, unaware of what was about to hit them, I immediately focused on scanning every area, searching for any clues about my sister, Su Kan. But little did I know, while I was scanning the castle at 3 in the morning amidst a blizzard, a massive shockwave was rippling across the world. Rumble, an unnamed live stream, displaying only the number 1 at exactly 3 a.m., initially only caught the attention of a few people. But when they realized it was my live stream room, and the content was a kobold castle in the eye of a storm, everyone instantly went crazy. WTF. Get into Sumo's live stream, quick. What the hell is that creepy castle? What is he planning to do? How can he live stream from there? Don't tell me he's attacking an alien race. What kind of weather is this? Minus 20 degrees, and he's still outside. I know this species. Kobolds. There are some near my area too. They're dangerous as hell, way stronger than Murlocs. But Almighty Su actually has a whole damn castle of them. Damn, this is intense. The news spread like wildfire. World Channel, Regional Channel, everyone was talking about it. Some guessed I was taking advantage of the blizzard to scavenge for loot. Others thought that with such a massive scale, humans couldn't possibly breach it, so I must just be live streaming to observe. But there were also hardcore fans, the Su believers, spamming nonstop. The number 1 person in the world, challenging a monster fortress all by himself, establishing dominance for humanity. Almighty Su charge. In the dead of night, The whole world seemed to wake up because of a single live stream. And then, someone spoke up, revealing the truth. This is the Kobold Castle right near our shelter. There are over 2,000 of them inside. Almighty Sue is going to save someone. Stop guessing. I didn't know who from the Western Shelter accidentally let it slip, but with just that one sentence, the livestream room exploded. Saving someone. Holy shit. Slaughtering thousands of kobolds alone to save a hostage. As expected of Huaxia's number one. So loyal and righteous. Fighting alien races? I fully support this. Almighty Sue, I have wood, iron, and copper. Just say the word, and I'll donate it all. We are brothers. Finally, someone dares to launch humanity's counterattack. This is truly peak. Most of the people of Huaxia, upon learning that I was risking my life to save someone from a terrifying alien race like the kobolds, were deeply moved. The chat was flooded with praise and admiration. Many even volunteered to donate supplies. However, there were also quite a few who weren't optimistic about this historic battle. Suemo needs to wake up. As long as the Green Hills remain, there will be no shortage of firewood. With your growth speed, you'll be strong enough to flatten them in just a few dozen days. Risking your life for someone else right now is too impulsive. 10,000 signatures petitioning. 1/10,000. Almighty Sue, don't risk your life. You're our hope. Don't do anything foolish. A frontal assault is too dangerous. Why not try negotiating? Who knows? Maybe the alien races can be reasoned with. In the apocalypse, you can only trust yourself. Sacrificing yourself for others? If you die, it's a total waste. Trading your life to save someone, and you might not even succeed. The risk is too high. I lean towards not saving them and waiting for a chance to take revenge later. Little Sue, listen to your uncle. The waters in this castle are too deep. You won't be able to handle it. Wait another 6 months or a year. Once I gear up, I'll help you take it down. A midnight battle hadn't even broken out yet, but tens of thousands of people were already deeply invested, discussing it passionately, as if they were the ones standing in my shoes. The initial excitement gradually faded. More and more people started to sober up, especially when they realized how terrifying the kobolds were. Their faith in my victory began to waver. Not on the first floor. It's all regular kobold soldiers. I've checked every corner. Not on the second floor either. This floor is also a kobold living area. The back is full of empty rooms. Most of them are gathered at the front. I had no idea the live stream was causing a global uproar. I just quietly and carefully used the live stream perspective to scan every floor of the castle. Right beside me, Zhong Qingshu sat on the ground, holding a red pen, marking every suspicious location on the map. After checking the third floor and still finding nothing unusual, I clenched my fists tighter. The bottom 3 floors were just the kobolds' living quarters. The top 2 floors were the main hub. Last time, I was in too much of a hurry to get a good look. As the live stream perspective flew up to the 4th floor, 2 spots emitting a faint golden light suddenly appeared in my line of sight. 4th floor, the room opposite the supply warehouse from last time. There was a layer of golden light blocking the view. I tried to push the perspective inside, but it didn't work. Diagonally across from the supply warehouse, there was another room just like it. The probability was very high. Both doors were covered by a thin layer of golden light. Yet, that light acted like an impenetrable wall, completely blocking the live stream's perspective. I didn't stop, shifting the perspective up to the 5th floor. This time, there were even more rooms covered in golden light. Right in the middle of the 5th floor, in the largest room, a bizarre diagram appeared against the faint golden glow. This is the kobold's ancestral god. Within the golden light, a blurry face resembling a kobold warlock emerged, its majestic aura making it hard to breathe. Just as I was about to pull the perspective closer for a better look, the room's door suddenly opened. A kobold wearing a white cloak stepped out. For a split second, its eyes looked straight up at the direction I was looking down from. In that moment, I felt as if our gazes had pierced through space and met. Right after, it lightly waved its staff. My vision went black. By the time it cleared, I had been kicked out of the fortress. The entire castle was now shrouded in a dense layer of golden light. I couldn't enter anymore. Damn it, what the hell was that? In that brief moment of eye contact, I managed to get a clear look at its face. It wasn't dim-witted like normal kobolds. In those eyes, there was wisdom, calmness, and an intelligence that far exceeded our understanding. And right before I was kicked out, I even saw a flash of vigilance in its eyes. The 5th floor is also shielded by golden light. It's highly likely my sister is on the 4th or 5th floor. If you manage to get in, you must be careful of that white-cloaked kobold. It might possess power far beyond our imagination. I spoke slowly, word by word. Facing a threat of unknown strength, I wasn't afraid at all. On the contrary, a surge of excitement welled up inside me. That white-cloaked guy actually isn't that strong. He clearly noticed me spying just now, but he didn't do anything other than block me out. That proves that even if he's stronger, he's still within a manageable range. Sukan's icon is still lit. That proves my sister is still safe. I didn't see her in the holding area. There's a high chance Sukan wasn't captured and brought into the castle. But I didn't want to gamble, since I'm already here, and I've grasped all the secrets inside the fortress. Then there's only one thing left to do. Fight. I'll circle around to the back and wait for an opening. Once everyone draws their attention at the front, I'll break in immediately. Having finished the reconnaissance, Zhong Qingshu put away the map and stood up decisively. She tightened her gear, her eyes radiating fierce determination. Hold on. Take this. I'm counting on you this time. Stay safe. I pulled out 2 fully loaded handguns along with 50 spare rounds, placing them solemnly into Zhong Qingshu's hands. Perhaps sensing the gravity in my voice, she didn't say a word. She just nodded, holstered the guns at her waist, and blended into the night, disappearing from sight. Few words, all action, decisive. That style was absolutely not that of an ordinary grad student. But I didn't have time to dwell on it now. Watching her silhouette fade, I immediately dropped to the ground and began crafting the Heartless cannons. The structure of a Heartless cannon consists of 4 parts: the launch tube, the propellant, the isolation board, and the explosive pack. The launch tube directs the explosive pack, much like a mortar barrel. I opened the trading market, bought 15 units of raw iron, spent 12 disaster points, and crafted 8 large, sturdy iron tubes. After punching a hole in the bottom of each tube, 8 simple, yet incredibly solid cannon barrels were born. For the propellant to create thrust, I took 2 kilos of gun cotton and spent another 120 survival points to craft it. For the isolation board to prevent premature detonation, I made a round wooden disc that fit perfectly inside the barrel. The explosive pack goes on top. Usually, you have to bury the cannon in the dirt to absorb the recoil, but with the snow this thick, just pressing it down was enough. Everything was ready. I just had to wait for the others to arrive, carry the cannons into battle, and we could start the war. I clenched my fists, purple from the cold, and shifted my perspective to find Chun Shun's group within the 50-kilometer radius. As soon as I saw them, I was overjoyed. While I had gone ahead, Chun Shun's group hadn't been sitting idle. They copied the simple snowboard setup I used earlier and crafted a dozen snowboards themselves back at the shelter. Just in time for Orio's second trip, they linked all the snowboards together into a long chain. As long as the person in front kept their balance, the whole line behind them would be incredibly stable. Right now, less than 20 kilometers away from me, Oreo was leading the pack, dashing at about 40 kilometers per hour. Behind him was a line of people trailing like a game of snake, gliding across the surface. Riding the tailwind, no one was tense. On the contrary, everyone eagerly watched the scenery blur past them. Especially Chun Shun, with the Type 80 machine gun strapped to his back, his face beaming, more excited than he had ever been. Excellent. After surviving this disaster, maybe it's time I start building my very first squad. Looking at them, I suddenly felt the time was ripe. Having people who trust me, who are hardworking and unafraid of hardship, it's time to form a team. I definitely need a team. Once the first harvest ripens, feeding 10 or 20 people will be a piece of cake. The advantage of manpower was obvious. No matter how strong an individual is, they have limits. To develop technologically, you need a specialized organization to run things. I lay flat on the ground, watching the group approach while keeping an eye on the movements atop the kobold walls. Less than 10 minutes later, Chun Shun's group arrived. Seeing me lying flat and observing from afar, with the brightly lit command center behind me, the whole group was both thrilled and pumped up. But they still had the sense to mimic scenes from movies, sneaking low to the ground as they ran up to me. "Brother Su, what's the plan? Do we charge right in?" We're not used to using these things. You gotta teach us. There were 11 people on this trip. All of them were people I had saved last time. These honest people of Huaxiao now had flushed faces, awkwardly scratching their heads. Looking at this endearing bunch, I shook my head slightly, then sprang up and patted the cannon tubes beside me. No need to charge in. With me here today, no one has to die. We're relying on these. These. What are these iron drums? Everyone knew about firearms, handguns, rifles, machine guns. Even missiles weren't unfamiliar to them. But when I placed my hand on this oil drum, the whole group froze. Not everyone had seen movies featuring flying thunder cannons, and even fewer knew about this infamous weapon, the Heartless Cannon. Among them, only a few quick-witted young guys reacted. They glanced at each other, as if suddenly realizing, is that the cannon from the movie? The Heartless Cannon. Can it really shoot our explosive packs straight into the Cobalt Castle? From the massive iron drums to the explosive packs I laid out, with the young guys explaining, everyone finally understood. This really was the Heartless Cannon. A middle-aged man in his 40s was so moved he shouted, "My grandpa used to use this kind of cannon. I still remember him talking about how to fire it. 8 cannon barrels, 60 explosive packs. We can fire a maximum of 7 volleys. With this kind of destructive power, even if the kobolds turtle up, they'll definitely be forced to come out and fight. Quiet down. Eat something first. While you're at it, tell me your name so I can assign tasks." Looking at this skinny, pale-faced group, I didn't say much. I pulled out all the remaining flatbreads from my storage space and handed them out to everyone. It was nearly 4 a.m. The blizzard had eased from a level 11 gale down to about a level 7. The fragrant smell of the bread drifted in the wind, instantly lifting the spirits of the starving group. "Hello, Brother Su. I'm Chinyu. I'm Chinji." As each person received their bread, they stood straight, bowed their heads, stated their names, and expressed their gratitude. Out of the 11 people, 6 were from the Chin family, all educated college students. The other 5 were older men. Aside from Chin Shin's older brother, Chin Shun, the rest were experienced uncles. "Almighty Su, I'm Wang Guang. Whatever you need, just give the order. I'll follow." The younger guys calling me Brother Su sounded natural, but the older folks like Wang Guang felt awkward and didn't dare call me brother, so they switched to Almighty Su. I handed him the bread. Watching them all eat like starving wolves, I felt reassured. I spoke up. "Young brothers, listen up. Later, Chun Shun, Chun Yu, Chun Ji, Chun Zwan, Chun Wei, Chun Xian. You 6 will take the guns and stand guard. The moment a kobold shows its face, shoot." I pulled out a rifle and the Type 80 machine gun, demonstrating right there how to toggle the safety and how to shoot. They were all young and had watched plenty of movies, so they learned incredibly fast, marveling and gasping as they held the guns. Especially Chun Shun, who set the machine gun down and practiced the proper stance I showed him, his eyes burning like fire. This time, we had a total of 2 handguns, already given to Zhong Qingshu. 6 rifles, distributed among 5 people, leaving 1 spare. 2 machine guns, 1 distributed, leaving 1 spare. I brought all the ammo out of my inventory. Once everyone finished eating and regained their strength, I gave a hand signal. In the dark of night, 12 people crouched low, moving through the blizzard, silently closing in on the Cobalt Castle. The darkness, the blizzard, the biting cold, all became the perfect camouflage. Less than 200 meters from the castle, seeing me drop low, the whole group stopped and split into their assigned teams. Many hands make light work. Before I even needed to call the guys in the back to drag the cannons up, the vanguard had already dug the holes to bury them. Standing in the middle of the squad, I watched the scene, my gaze cold and deep. Sure enough, the apocalypse is a place where strength speaks. No more laws, no more morals. Whoever is strongest is king. In civilized society, people constantly talked about equality and human rights. But here, I didn't need to say anything or do anything special. Just by my reputation and prestige, people naturally respected me. The environment shapes the man. Just 2 months ago, I was a nobody office worker. And now, while directing them to bury the cannons, I pulled out my rifle, tracing the patterns on its body. Today, according to the original plan, wasn't the time for the final showdown. But because of my sister's appearance, the battle with the kobolds was unavoidable. After today, the Cobalt Castle will be wiped from this wasteland. Chun Shun, Load the ammo. Remember the procedure. Follow every step exactly. The highly potent yellow explosive packs had been distributed evenly to each team. Seeing Chun Shin's sharpness, I appointed him squad leader, handing over command authority. Behind me, everyone was still busy preparing. I took a deep breath, crouched low, and advanced straight ahead. I have to win this battle. Wait for me, sis. I pulled the locator needle from my chest, pointing it straight at the Kobold Castle. Up in the watchtowers, a few dog-headed guards were shivering from the cold, completely oblivious. The apocalyptic war had just begun. I brushed aside a thin layer of snow on the ground, lay flat, and flicked off the rifle's safety. The muzzle slowly aimed at a guard still cluelessly looking around. The killing intent in my eyes practically erupted. At the same time, up in the sky on the live stream, a number that stunned the world appeared. 2.2 billion people. What did that mean? Out of all surviving humanity, in the freezing night at 4 a.m., half the world was glued to the battle unfolding before the Kobold Castle. Normal regional chat channels with just a few hundred people were enough to spam the screen to death. Now, my live stream channel had gathered over 2 billion people. With every passing second, the comments surged like an erupting volcano, flooding the screen. No one could read a single word unless they turned the comments off. It seemed the system also realized the situation was out of control. For the first time, the game panel auto-adjusted. Each person could only send one message every 3 minutes, accompanied by a smart filter just like the World Channel. Instantly, the flood-like chat calmed down and became more orderly. Players could finally converse clearly, and discussions began to flare up. Holy crap, Almighty Su is actually attacking. Look, he even brought out heartless cannons. You gotta be kidding me. Sumo's team has less than 15 people. How are they gonna fight? What if the kobolds refuse to come out? With that much explosive, why not just pile it all up and blow the whole place to Kingdom Come? This is insane. We can't move the camera. Can someone zoom in and see what Almighty Su is doing? Oh my god, is that an automatic rifle? Is this the moment humanity declares war on the alien races? Science versus magic. Let's show these otherworldly freaks that their monsters are just child's play. Even with the message limit, no one could contain their frenzy. Thanks to the smart filter, it was even easier for them to find common ground. People discussed everything from the disparity in forces and weapon strength to the kobolds' magical power and the future of humanity. Until, bang, a gunshot tore through the wind, the bullet streaking like a flash of lightning. The guard on the nearest tower had his head blown off, tumbling down into the snow, blood splattering everywhere. At the same time, a shrill warning horn echoed throughout the castle. In an instant, the entire fortress woke up. The sleeping kobolds snapped their eyes open, howling and barking like rabid dogs. The blood-curdling sounds echoed across the snowy plains. Beneath the howling blizzard, even the ground trembled. Despite being nearly 200 meters away, my team and I, lying flat on the ground, could still feel every tremor. I pulled the trigger again. Another kobold tower guard dropped dead. I stood up, slung the rifle over my shoulder, and headed back to the rally point. What scared? Aside from me, the rest of the team was pale as ghosts. This was the first time they had heard the howling of thousands of kobolds all at once. Even the usually bold Chun Shin was trembling, his whole body shivering as if he had malaria. They had seen blood at the limestone camp, but facing this sound, their minds hadn't adapted yet. Only the older men managed to keep their composure, faces stern, backs straight, hands gripping their weapons tightly. I'm not scared. I'm just excited. Really, Chun Shin spoke up, wiping his sweat, hugging the machine gun tightly, staring straight ahead without blinking. I just shook my head slightly, then looked toward the castle's main gate. In this weather, they won't dare come out. Just as I guessed, kobolds are inherently cowardly and cunning. They swarmed the walls, howling, frantically searching for our position in the dark. But looking from the dark into the light is easy. Looking from the light into the dark is like being blindfolded. Hundreds of howls, thousands of roars. That hellish scene terrified not only my team, but also gave goosebumps to the over 2 billion people watching the live stream. Holy shit, these kobolds are terrifying. Is humanity going to go extinct? With kobolds like this, how are we supposed to fight? Look, a kobold warlock holding a staff, just like the ones in D&D. Oh my God, are there really over 1,000 of them? What kind of nightmare is this? More and more kobolds flooded the walls, packed together like sardines. From afar, it looked like a powder keg just waiting for a spark. The regional channel, the world channel, everything exploded at once. There were rumors before that the castle held over 1,000 kobolds, but most people just took it as a joke. Because the strongest alien race humanity had encountered so far, the Murlocs, only had a tribe of 700. Yet now, a kobold tribe so massive it dwarfed the Murlocs appeared right before their eyes. A creeping fear spread everywhere. If just one kobold tribe had such terrifying numbers, then out there, how many more horrifying races were there that we hadn't discovered yet? Everyone who had seen them was already dead. Where is humanity heading? When that question popped up, the once bustling chat channel instantly fell into panic. No one wanted to die, especially those who were clinging to each other, struggling to survive day by day. They were afraid, and they didn't dare think any further. Looking at my image on the screen, the peanut gallery realized something for the first time. In this apocalypse, there's no room for bystanders anymore. They began to understand that danger was already at their doorstep. And right then, the bond connecting the surviving humans, that fragile community of shared destiny, became clearer than ever. If one thrives, all thrive. If one falls, it's a loss for all of humanity. I knew very well that if I, the temporary leader of humanity, fell during today's broadcast, it would be a crushing blow to the survival will of billions. In a place with only half a roof left after the freezing wind tore it away, I could hear the voices of a mother and child shivering to survive. They were hungry. They were cold. But amidst the blinding white snow, they still managed to utter a weak yet firm word. You can do it. In a large pit, a few teenagers huddled together for warmth, death breathing down their necks. Their voices trembled, but those words were clear. You can do it. In a refugee camp once deemed safe, now reduced to rubble by an alien attack. Faint cheers of "you can do it" still echoed from places where you'd think no one was left breathing. In a cramped, dark, but warm shelter, amidst a packed crowd, a little girl was trying to blend in so she wouldn't feel left out. Amidst the synchronized cheering, she clutched her hem tightly. If a lip-reading expert were there, they would see her lips barely move. Brother, you can do it. War won't stop once the first bullet is fired. Even those who once doubted me, now only had one phrase left in their hearts. You can do it. They were cheering for me, the one fighting against disasters and alien races. I knew all of humanity was anxious about this turning point in their destiny. I paused for a moment when I heard Chun Shun's voice through the earpiece, full of excitement. Brother Suemo, so many people are cheering for us. The whole team lay flat on the ground. No one said a word, waiting for my command. They all stared at the chaotic kobold castle. Thanks to my presence holding the line, after the initial panic, this makeshift group began to bond. The flag hadn't fallen, and morale hadn't waned. As long as the general lives, the army won't abandon him. Standing in the center of the battlefield, I could clearly feel that in their eyes, my figure was becoming more steadfast than ever. On one side was the seething kobold castle. On the other was me, a man who wouldn't take a step back even when facing an army of 10,000. The disparity in numbers was suffocating, but when I raised my hand to give the signal, the whole team instantly fired up as if fueled by gasoline. Brothers, the fire of humanity, it's time for it to burn. I turned to look at the iron drums planted firmly in the ground, pulled out 60 cheap, slow-burning fuses exchanged from the system, and tossed them in front of the team. Everyone, attach the fuses to the back of the explosives. North, lower angle to 180. Raise to 220. Entire squad, fall back 15 meters. Using fuses to ignite the thunder cannons is the safest and most accurate method. The moment I finished speaking, everyone immediately jumped into action like a professional army. 3 minutes later, the last fuse was connected. I looked toward the still noisy kobold castle, my eyes ice cold, and roared. Kobold's my ass. Trash magic. As long as it's within the firing range of us humans, technology is magic. Artillery is the only truth. Everyone light him up. Aim for the thickest crowds and fire. Sizzle. 8 fuses ignited at once, crackling like a swarm of fiery snakes darting forward. In a split second, Boom, boom. 8 earth-shattering explosions tore through the night sky. The cannonballs, packed with dense explosives, shrieked through the blizzard, flying straight toward the Kobold Castle. It was so beautiful. Their trajectories were as perfect as if calculated by a formula. And then, the sky lit up. 8 cannonballs detonated right on the walls. The light was so intense it consumed the entire sky for 3 solid seconds. Snow fell, wind howled, flames billowed, and the desperate screams of the kobolds echoed. Before the echoes of the explosions even faded, the wind blew the smoke aside, revealing the walls. Then, cheers erupted across the entire channel. It blew up. It actually blew up. We broke through. A glaring hole. Charred kobold corpses scattered everywhere. Yellow liquid splattered all over the walls. The thick wooden gate had a massive hole blown right through the middle. The first volley wasn't enough to destroy the whole castle, but their arrogant howling had completely vanished into the blizzard. Everyone get ready. Round 2 begins. I quickly communicated with Zhong Qingshu, not stopping for even a second. When you're winning, you press the attack. After seeing the sheer power of the heartless cannons, I didn't give them a chance to breathe. 3 more volleys slammed straight into the walls. In just 3 minutes, 4 waves of artillery rained down on the kobolds' heads. Before the 5th volley could even launch, they finally couldn't take it anymore. The thick, battered wooden gate was shoved open by 2 squads of kobolds. From the deep, dark recesses, those red-eyed mad dogs charged straight out. Artillery team, prepare to reload. Gun team, wait until they're within 100 meters, then give him everything you've got. I swapped the rifle on my shoulder, pulling out the Type 80 general-purpose machine gun. My lips were cracked and bleeding, but I just licked them lightly, a fanatical thrill igniting in my eyes. The Kobold Castle was officially in chaos. Zhong Qingshu's chance had arrived. Out on the snow-white plains, after multiple artillery strikes, the Kobold pack finally pinpointed my front line's position. Seeing my team seemingly unable to react in time, they howled and charged, eyes red, looking like they wanted to tear everything to shreds. 240 meters. 200 meters. 150 meters. When the distance was just seconds away from a clash, I saw Zhong Qingshu send an OK in the chat box. I immediately flicked off the machine gun's safety, raised my head, and roared. Spread out and sweep. Full firepower. Shoot every last one of those bastards. Everyone had been lying flat in the snow waiting for this command. No one hesitated. Triggers were pulled frantically. Bang, bang, rat-tat-tat. The sounds of rifles and machine guns blended together, like the opening notes of a blood-soaked symphony of death in the snowy night. Red flames spat from the muzzles. Every bullet carried lethal intent as it whizzed through the air. The kobolds, initially so aggressive, now stood frozen as if struck by lightning. Compared to the rifles, the Type 80 machine gun, firing at 800 rounds a minute, was like a toxic firestorm, shredding chunks of flesh right off their bodies. Screams mingled with explosions. Ark, I'm dead. As soon as they charged out, many were turned into honeycombs before they could even make a sound, black blood spraying everywhere. The pristine white snow was dyed a horrifying crimson black. Still want to charge? Still got the guts to fight? A kobold warlock tried to throw the first fireball, but the moment it raised its hand, my bullets blew the fireball up in midair, causing a secondary explosion. The kobold formation completely collapsed. The ones on the outside tried to turn and run, while the ones in the back, clueless about what was happening, were still being yelled at and shoved forward by their captains. They trampled each other, howling. Bullets flew, corpses piled up. Just as my front line was reloading, a brutal civil war broke out inside the Kobold Castle. The warlocks in the back, the ones using fireballs to clear the way, went mad, firing wildly into the crowd to carve out an escape route. As a result, the kobolds descended into absolute chaos. Suamo, I'm on the 2nd floor. Keep causing a distraction, buy me some time. Hearing Zhong Qingshu's voice, I didn't hesitate. I rushed to the artillery mounts and adjusted the firing angle. Angle 175. Northwest. Everyone aimed for the gate. Fire. After 5 volleys, we only had enough ammo for 2 more. Luckily, the thunder cannons were simple to operate, ready in just seconds. 8 cannonballs trailed each other, hurtling toward the gate. And then, the The world suddenly went dead silent. The kobolds in the back finally climbed over the pile of corpses, witnessing firsthand the hellscape laid out before the gate. I saw the remaining number of enemies and a few damaged cannon barrels. I didn't wait any longer. Everyone, grab the explosives. Advance another 50 meters. Cover my breach. Objective, annihilate all the kobolds. After multiple artillery barges, the ground was littered with dropped treasure chests, looking incredibly tempting. The people who initially thought this was a hopeless death match were now rubbing their eyes constantly. We won. Just like that? Did we really win? It wasn't just my team. The over 2 billion people watching from the sky also exploded with emotion. Almighty Su is about to win. Humanity actually won. One blast from the cannons, and those kobolds went brain dead. What magic! It can't even compare to artillery. I told you. Under the might of firearms, kobolds are nothing but sheep waiting to be slaughtered. Before the next rain of steel could detonate, my teammates provided cover fire, allowing me to silently dash straight into the castle. The moment I set foot inside, the group at the base of the wall dropped flat into the snow, breathing a sigh of relief. But, in a hidden corner on the 5th floor of the wall, a white-cloaked kobold appeared out of nowhere. Expressionless, looking exactly like its kin, except for the cloak. Its actions made Chen Shun, who was watching the live stream, jump in shock. This is bad. Get out of there, quick. That moment was etched into his memory for the rest of his life. Above the kobold castle, a fireball the size of a basketball court was hovering. Blue flames. Not gruesome, but mesmerizingly beautiful. In the center of the sphere, a western dragon coiled, swimming leisurely through the flames. Every time it flapped its wings, the fireball swelled larger. Before anyone could run, the white-cloaked kobold waved its hand. Boom! A sun exploded amidst the snowy sky. Half of the kobold castle was leveled. Those who couldn't run in time were blown away by the shockwave like straw. Zhong Qingshu, what floor are you on? Have you checked the room covered by the golden light? The castle was in utter chaos. The kobold formation was shattered. With no commanders left, the low-level ones went mad, running around blindly. The warlocks even threw away their staffs, shoving each other to find an escape route through the narrow side doors. The moment I stepped into the hallway, I crashed right into a kobold squad. But they didn't even notice me, just charging in one direction as if following some order. This is bad. Watch out. Zhong Qingshu's scream rang out. Before I could react, a shockwave so powerful it tore the ground apart erupted in the distance. The castle, so sturdy that cannon fire couldn't shake it, was now cracked in half by the tremor. From the center of the castle, the ground ripped open. The front half, lacking a foundation, collapsed straight down as if its legs had been kicked out from under it. The massive pillars supporting the upper floors crashed down one after another. Walls, ceilings, floors, everything crumbled like rotten paper. In a moment of carelessness, a huge boulder slammed right into my back. My whole body went flying like an arrow loosed from a bow. What the hell? I lay flat on the ground, the excruciating pain making my head spin. Everything grew hazy, as if I was about to black out. I gritted my teeth, forced myself up, and with a wave of my hand, pulled out a bottle of energy water, downing it while trembling. I immediately switched my perspective to the command camera to see what was happening outside. The screen flickered on, and the sight left me stunned. The artillery position was completely gone. The snow on the ground had completely evaporated. In its place was a bottomless crater, about 70 or 80 meters wide, so deep you couldn't see the bottom. Inside the crater, specks of blue fire still smoldered. Flames that looked exactly like the hellfire of damnation. Just a glance was enough to terrify anyone. But what shocked me more wasn't the deep crater. It was the one who cast that fireball, and his true target. The fireball engulfed the entire castle. This was the textbook definition of killing 800 enemies at the cost of 1,000 of your own. Half the castle had collapsed, but the other half still stood firm, as if nothing had happened. I had no idea what kind of freakish material this castle was made of. Through the darkness and dust, I saw the white-cloaked kobold still standing tall on the highest floor. Right next to him were the scorch marks of black powder. He seemed to sense my gaze. The white-cloaked guy smirked slightly, a cold, mocking smile. Then he raised his staff again, preparing to cast another spell. This time, the fireball was more normal. It only had a faint blue, bone-like thread swirling inside it. Other than that, it looked no different from what other warlocks cast. But the bizarre part was where he was aiming. Not at me. Not at the decimated artillery team. Not at Zhong Qingshu on the 4th floor. He aimed straight at his own kind. The survivors. Watch out. That white-cloaked guy has gone insane. He's killing his own kobolds. Don't go up yet. Hearing that warning, my heart skipped a beat in unease. What the hell is this guy doing? Why is he slaughtering his own kind? Looking down from above, squad after squad of kobolds were gathered by their captains, only to be instantly wiped out by the white-cloaked guy's fireballs. In less than a minute, the number of kobolds he killed surpassed the cannons and machine guns combined. Even the ones running away seemed hypnotized. They willingly stood in place without resisting, as if waiting for holy fire to incinerate them. Is he doing this to deny me the kill points? Or does he have some other, more terrifying purpose? My heart pounded wildly. I roared, shoved off the stone slab pinning me down, and dashed straight upstairs through the stairs that hadn't collapsed yet. Even though I didn't understand his scheme, I was certain of one thing. I had to stop him at all costs. Treasure chests? Not important. Kobolds? Insignificant. My biggest goal was finding my sister. If Sukin wasn't in the castle, then even if the kobolds were wiped out, it wouldn't affect the crazy world out there. My back still ached piercingly, my combat armor torn to shreds. As I climbed, I spent 40 system points to repair my gear. Beneath the blinding dust, a blue light flashed. When I reappeared, everything was pristine, as if nothing had happened. Zhong Qingshu, are you okay? Can you hear me? The connection hadn't been cut yet. Her voice was weak and intermittent. I checked everywhere. Every room. Your sister isn't in the castle. Hurry, stop that white-cloaked guy. He's killing all the kobolds. If you don't, we're all going to die. As soon as she finished, the audio turned into a chaotic static buzz. Right then, the 2 rooms covered in golden light on the 4th floor exploded. Zhong Qingshu was blown away, crashing hard into the snow and ice. Dead or alive, it was unknown. Sukin wasn't in the castle. What did Zhong Qingshu see? What the hell is that white-cloaked guy doing? These 3 questions clung to my mind like 3 ghosts. Seeing him continue to slaughter the remaining kobolds, my legs ran even faster. For things to be this abnormal, there was definitely a massive problem. With Zhong Qingshu's reminder, I temporarily set aside my worries for my sister. Seeing Su Kan's name icon still lit on the map, I reached the 4th floor, raised my gun, and swept a barrage straight at the white-cloaked guy. Unfortunately, all the bullets were blocked by a layer of golden light. He saw me too, but he didn't stop. Instead, he threw fireballs even faster. Motherfucker, are you addicted to team killing? Seeing the bullets were useless, I charged straight up to the 5th floor. Down below, the number of surviving kobolds was practically 0. They had been completely wiped out by both sides, me and him. As I was climbing, he was also gradually running out of strength. He managed to launch 2 more fireballs, wiping out the rest of his kin, including the captains and warlocks. 3 hours ago, this place was a brightly lit, warm fortress full of hope. 3 hours later, it had become a living hell. Corpses piled up like mountains, blood flowing like rivers. I rushed up to the 5th floor, but I was too late to stop the final fireball from flying out. Before my eyes, the white-cloaked kobold slumped to the ground, a relieved smile spreading across his lips. Strong human, you finally arrived. Thank you. Thank you for bringing this once-in-a-millennium opportunity. Haha. Welcome to witness the descent of the great Divine Hound. Witness the sacrifice of Bozal, the summoner of the Divine Hound. He spoke with a look of both relief and fanatical joy, as if all the people who died in the battle just now were humans, and he was the true victor who got exactly what he wanted. I replied coldly, I'm here. So what? You look like you're about to say something like, I won, I'm so amazing, and you're so stupid, right? Let me guess some more. Are you trying to say that everything I did was foolish, and only you understand the truth? You probably want to add one last line. When the Divine Hound descends, he will rule this land, right? I scoffed. That cliché crap? Don't bother showing it off. As I spoke, I tried to stall for time while scanning the areas on the 5th floor that used to be shielded by golden light. If Sukin wasn't here, then even if the kobolds really summoned this so-called divine hound, I wouldn't be scared. First, the game wouldn't let some god-level bug break the balance without providing a countermeasure. Second, I still had a Dongfeng 17 tucked away in my system. The ultimate official bug fixer. If needed, I'd just pull it out and let it rip. Panic? Sorry, I don't have that concept. The white-cloaked kobold was now exhausted, unable to maintain the light barrier anymore. I tried switching to the broadcast perspective. Sure enough, the barrier had completely vanished. I pulled the locator compass from my coat. The needle twitched slightly, pointing to a tiny, very subtle corner. But I immediately noticed it. Before I could look closer, the white-cloaked Bozil suddenly looked shocked for a few seconds, then burst into maniacal laughter. Ha! You foolish humans. Did you think you could claim the spoils after defeating the Heavenly Hound tribe? Keep dreaming. In this battle, not only will you gain nothing, but you've also lost humanity's rare mage. I bet you're seething with hatred right now, aren't you? He pointed toward where the oil drums were buried, his eyes filled with sick, twisted pleasure. I could clearly see he was as happy as a clam. Mage my ass, you crazy old dog. Are you delusional? I came here to find my sister. And it looks like she's not here. That's even better. I'll just wipe out your nest while I'm at it. I drew my electric spear, stomped hard, and lunged forward, driving a thrust straight through Bozil's thigh. Arc! The spear piercing his thigh made his face contort in agony. Even though he could speak human language and cast giant fireballs, at his core, he was still a filthy kobold. His physical strength was pitifully weak. Sister? You all have to die? All of you. First, you filthy invaders. Before he could finish screaming, I yanked the spear out and stabbed his other thigh. Haha. Kill me. Slaughter me. Strike me down. Let us witness the descent of the divine hound together. Both his thighs were punctured with holes the size of bowls, black blood spurting in streams. But Bozil didn't shut up. He grew increasingly frantic, like an addict high on his own pain. I stood frozen. What kind of monster is this? Unafraid of pain, unafraid of death, even laughing like a maniac while watching his own flesh and blood splatter. In that single second of distraction, from beneath the castle, a golden magic circle suddenly surged upward. It was chillingly beautiful, as magnificent as something out of a movie, and more terrifying than anything I had ever seen. Instantly, all the kobold corpses were sucked into it. Even the blood-stained snow and ice couldn't escape. The magic circle was like the maw of a demon from hell, frantically devouring all flesh and blood. When the last scrap of flesh vanished, the magic circle flared brightly, then exploded like a heavenly thunderbolt striking down. Bozil roared, Divine Hound. The great heavenly hound is about to descend. The final chance for redemption belongs to the Heavenly Hound tribe. No one can steal it. I, Bozil, will be taken to the divine realm. Immortal, eternal, and indestructible. He had lost too much blood, his consciousness wavering. But the moment the magic circle exploded, the two wounds on his thighs stopped bleeding and began to heal themselves. Beams of golden light shot straight up from the castle into the sky, piercing the dark clouds and shattering the blizzard. A massive rift in the sky slowly opened, then blazed with light. It wasn't sunlight. It wasn't the dawn. It was a giant, blurry dog head, covered in golden light, slowly emerging, taking up nearly half the sky. A god, something ancient and ferocious, looking down at the tiny world beneath its feet. It felt as if the true apocalypse had just begun. Rumble. When the giant head appeared, Bozil immediately groveled on the ground. Blood still flowed from his stab wounds, but he didn't care. His eyes burned like a zealot seeing the savior. Streaks of golden light floated in the air. The blizzard that had been raging all this time stopped. The wind ceased. The snow melted. The world fell into absolute silence. Only the sound of the spatial rift cracking remained, growing more intense by the second. A divine spectacle, utterly unimaginable. Even the sight of an asteroid hitting Earth, or the Buddha's realm in the palm of Tathagata in Journey to the West, couldn't compare. I stood there, staring blankly at the giant dog head covering the sky. My whole body turned ice cold, my scalp went numb, my heart pounded wildly. A suffocating unease gripped me, as if an invisible hand was crushing my chest. So this was what Oreo saw? Even though that head was just a phantom, The mystical pressure it radiated almost suffocated me. Up in the sky, the number of livestream viewers exploded past the 3 billion mark. Desperate screams rang out. What the fuck is that? Go outside and look at the sky, quick. I can see that giant head from here too. Is this the level humanity has to face? We're all going to die? Humanity is extinct. We didn't come here to survive. We came here to die? The kobolds have an ancestral god. What do we have? Why are humans just like ants waiting to be squashed? Mom, I don't want to play anymore. Why do dogs get a divine hound, but we don't get Hong Jun, the 3 pure ones, or the Buddha? Cries of despair engulfed the entire world. In the minds of humanity, no matter how strong the Murloc tribe was, as long as humans could craft guns and weapons, they weren't impossible to deal with. No matter what race it was, as long as we had technology and firearms, humanity could still reclaim this continent step by step. The only difficulty was surviving the brutal early stages under the first waves of disasters. But now, almost everyone who still had the strength to walk was standing in the blizzard, staring blankly at the sky. Looking at that blurry, giant dog head bathed in brilliant golden light. And silence. Fear was taking shape. Despair was growing. An enemy like that. Even if humanity were at its peak on Earth, victory wouldn't be guaranteed. Let alone now, when most people were still holding stone axes and wooden knives. We still have Almighty Suimo. He will definitely. Some resilient soul typed that into the disaster chat channel. And strangely, no one argued. No one mocked. No one laughed. Everyone just silently looked up at the sky. Imagine, if you were standing right under that colossal shadow, how would it feel? Suffocating. Breathless. Despairing. That feeling spared no one watching the live stream. Some burst into tears right on the spot. Some panicked and smashed their keyboards. Some screamed, demanding to log out of the game. Seeing no hope is despair. Seeing no future is death. Beneath the rubble, the team members who had been blown away by the shockwave earlier began to wake up. But when they looked up and saw the scene in the sky, a few of the younger ones managed to hold on, while the older folks fainted all over again. Brother Shun. What the fuck is that? Who could handle opening their eyes to see the entire sky taken up by a giant dog head? Who wouldn't panic when they didn't know which way to run, didn't know if there was anywhere left to hide? The one called out, Chin Shun, also saw the scene clearly, but he didn't say anything. He just silently stared intently at the sky, looking toward the top of the castle. No one spoke anymore. The silence was maddening. A monster like that. Even the young people who had believed in science and materialism for years couldn't help but feel their worldview collapsing. Humans can fight monsters, but fighting a god. No one dared to dream of tomorrow's dawn anymore. Chin Shun remained silent, his eyes still fixed on me. And this time, everyone around him followed his gaze. Then they saw it. On the 5th floor of the castle, right beneath the brilliant golden light of the descending god, someone was standing there. A silhouette. Me. Strong human. Are you scared yet? Are you terrified? Ha ha ha. Our invincible ancestral god has descended. The door to salvation is about to open. I must thank you. You're the one who helped us fulfill the summoning conditions. Ha ha. In the sky, the giant phantom of the divine hound continued to expand. On the ground, Bozel, the white-cloaked kobold, began dancing wildly like a shaman in a trance, swaying on the 5th floor balcony. But before he could howl any further, 3 earth-shattering slaps. I didn't hold back, swinging my hand and slapping the mad dog right in the snout. For sharp fangs flew out of Bozel's mouth, black blood spraying. He fell backward onto the castle floor, his face filled with panic and disbelief. He stammered, "You're not afraid of the ancestral god's punishment." I grabbed a handful of fur on his head and slapped him relentlessly. Blood splattered everywhere. His face swelled up, his tongue bitten off. "Does this ancestral god of yours even know your face?" I gritted my teeth, maintaining my composure under the crushing pressure from the sky. Every word I spoke struck the air like a hammer. I held Bozel up like a chicken. His mouth was full of blood, but his eyes still burned with fanaticism. The ancestral god will not spare those who blaspheme him. A typical crazed zealot, beaten until his snout was swollen, yet still muttering his scriptures. I gifted him 2 more punches, then tossed him to the ground like a dirty rag. I took off my mask and took a few deep breaths of the freezing air. Clean. No more stench of blood. 5 a.m. The deepest part of the night, the moment right before dawn. In the sky, the figure of the divine hound gradually became as vivid as reality. Streams of earth-colored light gathered at its neck, flowing into the diamond-shaped gem at its throat. The grayish-white gem had now turned an earthy brown, as if awakening. I sat on the edge of the castle wall, calmly looking straight into its eyes, silently waiting. In the eyes of others, it looked no different from me sitting there waiting to die. That steadfastness suffocated the last shreds of hope in the hearts of the millions watching. Against something that massive, what use are guns? Whether it's a rifle or a heavy machine gun, against a creature the size of a mountain range, it's not worth a dime. Is humanity's hope about to be extinguished? If it finishes killing Sumo, will it kill us too? I don't want to die. This is all Sumo's fault. He caused all of this. If he hadn't provoked that monster, his fault my ass. You don't blame the game system that threw you in here, but you blame him? I'll punch your lights out. Shut up. Everyone shut up. Or maybe we try negotiating with the Divine Hound. As long as he spares humanity, everything is negotiable. Even with the system locking messages to 1 every 3 minutes, the comment section still exploded like hell. Arguing, panicking, crying, resenting. As the mask of civilization was torn away, humans revealed their true nature. Many shelters descended into chaos. In some large shelters, people even went insane. Only the government-run shelters managed to maintain a fragile semblance of order. But inside, it was far from peaceful. People ran back and forth, documents were frantically passed around. No one said a word. But everyone knew, this was a massive crisis. Humans, however, have never been a species to just sit back and wait for death. In the minds of the masses, the foundation of the government shelters wasn't something ordinary people could fathom. After 20 days of silent development, entering ruins twice, they had brought back all sorts of bizarre technology and special items. If humanity had another 100 days, just a little more time, perhaps beneath this starry sky, humans would no longer be like ants only capable of looking up. A secure bunker buried deep underground slowly opened. Bizarre items with unusual shapes were brought out one by one. Some looked like toothbrushes, others like miniature satellite dish antennas. There were also technological devices so weird that even I had never seen them before. They were all laid out, rotated this way and that, scanning and probing toward the giant divine hound head in the sky. Commander, against a monster like this, do we have any weapons left that can stand against it? We have to risk it. Even if we can't stop it, we have to try. If Sumo dies, who else will step up? Who else will dare to stand up? Analysts, have we determined the energy level of that monster in the sky? What tier of energy weapon do we need to counter it? Analyze it. Analyze everything. Humanity only gets one shot at this. If we don't figure it out this time, next time it might be us facing it directly. Quick, send a friend request to Sumo. Ask him what he needs. Tell him we'll support him unconditionally. Rally all the government shelters. Gather all our weapons. Let's try a full-scale assault on that giant divine hound in the sky. It couldn't be denied. Perfecting the shelter system in just 20 days was proof enough of the terrifying power of the government shelters. In just 5 minutes, through large-scale communication, a massive number of shelters simultaneously brought out their weapons. There were familiar things from the old civilization: guns, cannons, even small-scale anti-aircraft missiles. Population is power. Every time I entered a ruin, I could only bring back a few items. But the large shelters could send hundreds of people in at once. The things they brought back were naturally multiplied many times over. They had been silent until now, never sending messages in the chat channels, leading many to mistakenly believe the government was just waiting to die. But now, as all the government shelters linked up, all of humanity simultaneously opened fire on the sky. Launch the attack. Attack that giant divine hound at all costs. Fire. Artillery shells shrieked, cannons roared, anti-aircraft missiles launched into the sky one after another. In that moment, the survivors in the shelters all raised their heads. Their eyes filled with hope, looking up at humanity's final battle. But when the first anti-aircraft missile reached an altitude of several thousand meters, it suddenly vanished. Everyone was stunned. The sky was no longer the sky. The void was no longer the void. Humanity's weapons, upon entering the upper atmosphere, were like stones sinking into the ocean, leaving not a single ripple. Without a complete technological chain, merely firing isolated weapons couldn't even breach an altitude of 5,000 meters. Our weapons have entered an unobservable dimension. If we can just figure out this dimension, maybe we can find a way home. Countless scientists stared at the torn sky with fanatical eyes, as if infinite equations were dancing in their vision. Years of physics hypotheses now seemed to be proven. But to ordinary people, it all meant one thing. Their weapons were useless. Everyone gaped as the Divine Hound's head grew larger and larger, pressing down heavier and heavier. The cold air around them felt like it was freezing solid. When the last missile was swallowed by the air, even the soldier who pressed the launch button slumped down, his eyes hollow. A way home. With an enemy like this, is there even a way back? Or is going home just a pipe dream? Elsewhere, the first wave of counterattacks ended, and the live stream viewership continued to climb. From 3 billion to 3.5 billion, then 4 billion people. All the survivors, except those actively struggling in the blizzard, were practically all watching the live stream. They huddled in the cold, in fear, pressing against their small windows to look outside, looking at the sky, then looking at the screen. In their eyes, the disaster brought by the Divine Hound had far surpassed the blizzard. You could survive a blizzard. But if the Divine Hound struck, it wasn't even certain if this planet would still exist. Recorded, total livestream viewership has exceeded 4 billion. Continuous viewing time exceeds 15 minutes. Reward has been upgraded to gold tier. The notification chime rang out, but I sat on the castle wall, my face still stern, without a hint of joy. In my line of sight, the giant Divine Hound had completely taken shape. When the diamond-shaped crystal at its throat shattered, its eyes became lively, seemingly gaining consciousness. At the same time, in a dimensional layer invisible to others, a faint green light flashed in my eyes. In just a breath, it enveloped the giant Divine Hound, then silently returned to my body. The white-cloaked kobold I had beaten unconscious now woke up. He looked up at the sky, watching the ancestral god transforming, then immediately began groveling like a madman. Ancestral god. The ancestral god has arrived. I, Bozil, am a warrior of the Heavenly Hound tribe. He was so devoted that he wouldn't hesitate even if it meant sacrificing his own life. As for me, looking at the kobold frantically kowtowing on the ground, then looking back up at the dog ancestral god acting all divine in the sky, the corners of my lips just curled up slightly into a smile of pure disdain.